And we are live. I am Wendy Reese with the Whole Being Zone, and I am with Denny Richard today. He is one of the most amazing people that I know, and he often tells people that I'm the female version of him, so I guess that's why I think he's so awesome.
Right.
But he is a wellness enthusiast. He is a lover of life, a yoga teacher, personal trainer, wellness coach, outdoor enthusiast, and I would say probably to steal some terms from, I just forgot it, Tim Ferriss, life hack and body hack, because Denny really looks at life and the human body very differently than almost anybody that I know. And I think one day, hundreds of years from now, people will probably be quoting him. So I'm really excited to have you here, Denny, to talk to us about health and entrepreneurships and business and leadership. So welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Here is a great place to be all the time.
See what I mean? This is how it's going to go. So, Denny, tell us what is health to you?
Health. Oh gosh, health is a balance of all of the delicious things that we get to experience in life. So, of course, health can be of the body, right? That's what we typically think about is the ability to wake up and conquer your day in a space that physical space that allows you to get through it without any discomfort or perhaps without a lot of obstacle because the body as well. Health to me is permeates through everything that we touch. It's about the mind being okay and open and happy to be the creative force and the directional observer instead of getting caught in this cloud of storm that could be potentially unhealthy because of that cycle that happens between mind and emotion, that story that comes into play where we spend probably way too much of our time being in. Health is relationships, finances, a garden, a friend. It's kind of the well-beingness of our external universe that hopefully matches the well-beingness of our internal universe.
Well, it's beautiful. So how do pretty much everybody I know, and you and I have worked together, not in a while, but for years we worked together, and we saw many people together, and I know we've seen many people in our own businesses that are really wrapped up in their stories.
Story is such an identifying circumstance. It's great to have a story to tell, but being identified with the story it can be extremely debilitating as well because it doesn't allow you to become who you're supposed to become next, which of course is a constant change. It's a constant evolution into the next you. Right, so story is fun to share and tell, but the unwillingness to not be that story but be about the story, perhaps watching or telling or sharing a story, are separate, unhealthy versus healthy.
So how do you help people break free of their story or their identity with the story?
Right. Oh gosh, breaking free of story. Part of it is forgiveness. When we are unable to forgive, and unable to me also translates into unwilling. When we're unwilling to move into a place of forgiveness, and that's not just forgiveness of an event or forgiveness of a person or forgiveness of what happened to me or what I did to someone, we get caught in the cycle of repetition because we continue to play out the scenario in our mind, which then our emotions become a part of, which then our physical body actually becomes as well. You think it, you feel it, you become it. It goes in that form. And part of it is, not only forgiving the circumstance or situation, perhaps, but really forgiving yourself for holding on to and replaying that situation over and over and over and over again. because it doesn't, again, it doesn't allow you to grow. It doesn't allow you to move forward because you become self-identified with what's happened in the past, thinking that you owe it some sort of allegiance to maintain who it is that you have promoted yourself to be based on the story that was once who you were, because of a situation or a circumstance. So forgiveness, yeah, one of the big ways of moving out of, getting past roadblocks and becoming less self-identified.
What roles do accountability and responsibility play in that?
Oh, um, huge. Huge at first, definitely when you start doing the work, because when you start doing the work, and when I say doing the work, it's when you're getting into, being ready to make change in your life. You have to do work. It doesn't just automatically happen. You have to be willing to rip apart all of the nitty-gritty, uncomfortable stuff that was never dealt with to a degree, because we were unwilling to kind of feel what it actually feels like to be free of it. So doing the work, um, is a part of the first part of that course, and it's not a fun kind of thing to explore right off, but then it actually becomes quite a lot of fun. Because once you start to forgive, you can start to laugh. And once you start to laugh, you can be very playful with how it is that you're, revisiting these experiences that you have, because you are no longer identified with them. They were something that happened, and you can look at it from an outside perspective. So bring me back to the question.
Oh, accountability and responsibility.
Yeah, okay, accountability, right? So accountability, and responsibility. Accountability is looking at how, um, how you hold yourself accountable to where you want to go in the future, and nobody, and hold you accountable to your responsibilities of what you've committed to doing. And um, you know, one of the biggest questions, I think that we should be asking ourselves, and this is a should, I'm shitting on myself, is a Wendy expression, don't shit on yourself, but sometimes you should shit all over yourself, um, is what what do I want to do? Or better yet, what do I want? Because I think that a lot of us feel, by asking that question, we become selfish, because it's a very selfish question to ask. So again, I turn around and say, okay, whose life am I living, right? I'm, as far as I know, this thing inside of this body having this experience, and that's what I know to be my truth. And I'm not living, your life. That's your responsibility, right? And I'm not living, friends' lives. That's their responsibility. So what I can do is be accountable to own what it is that I bring forth to the world around me. And that is a very empowering, experience, because in owning what it is that I want to experience in the life around me, then I make, decisions, and choices based on, uh, perspectives of change and growth. Because, although I appreciate the events and the things that I've experienced in my past, both the very joyous occasions and then the stingers that hurt like there's no tomorrow, because they both teach me such profound ways of experiencing, this beautiful world, that we get to live in around us. And I think part of the accountability, for self is really, how do you want to see the world? Because we can see it as painful and angry and hateful and full of angry people and full of sadness and full of whatever, fill in the blank. But we can also see it as beautiful and expressive and creative and joyful and abundant and full of life. And I think that the more we take ownership of who it is that we are and who it is that we want to become, the more easy it is to experience the more positive sides of the experience of life. You know, the experience of life to me comes like a it's a very dualistic universe, right? Happy, sad, up and down, left and right. For a lot of us, I mean, looking at just the unhappy side of life is a way, but knowing that on the back side of that, there's all of this joy because everything comes in a duality. But you know, that's base level, and when we can grasp that level, it's great because then we can start to turn the page over and start to see the positive in all of the experiences. But then, of course, you know, knowing that we are the piece of paper, right? So we're both the experience and the creator of the experience at the same exact time, both the light and the dark. So, um, yeah, accountability, responsibility. I think that sums it up somewhere in there.
You touched on just a few moments ago about feelings and starting to feel what we
Mm,
feel. And I know you and I have had many, many conversations about this over the years about the ability to even feel. And I know your background, you went from a corporate position in a not so healthy environment to where you are now over a period. It's been what, about a decade since you left the
almost
corporate?
10 years this December.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
been about 10 years of this journey of where you are now. And so for people who are just in that space that they're realizing, I don't even know how to
Mm.
feel anymore, but I know I don't want to feel like this.
Right. Gosh, you know, there's a great explanation on the evolution of emotion, and that from two very different sources. One of them from some yoga teaching, the Patanjali's, the Yoga Sutras, and then another from Abraham, the text of Abraham. It's Jerry Nestor Hicks, the Law of Attraction, and they resonate on the same page, and the evolution of the human emotion from on the yoga side talks about suppressed emotions, and a lot of us, you know, when we're in that what do I do now phase of emotion and feeling, or the numbness to feeling, we've taken our emotions, and you know, society is so profound in the fact that it's the like-minded relation of victim conscious or fear conscious or anger conscious is, gathers up so much strength that we feel that we have to conform to what it is that society prescribes in order for us to live who we are. So when we're born, we come into this world and the whole world is gaga, ooh, baby, 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 and you're like, yeah, this is so cool, I'm hungry, feed me, and then I want to go to sleep, and it works out really well. And then when we're very young, like two-ish, you know, we start to develop a sense of call it what you want, the ego perspective or the I want experience. And part of that I want experience for me, in terms of understanding, is like when you're two and you want something. You know, I think of, you know, I did not come into this world to be told no, right? This is what's probably going on in my mind as a 2-year-old, and here I am every time I go to do something for my protection or for whatever, right? The fear, anger, victim. Society says, no, you can't do this. And then, of course, you start rebelling against it. And then there's, of course, punishment that's in relationship to how you are acting as a child, right? So because we need to conform the children to acting as adults at a very young age so that they can fit into society later on. Right. So anyway, you're a child and you're told no, and you act out, and then you get reprimanded, and there's consequences. And then, of course, you're growing up and you become part of the educational system, and you're self-identified as the student and as the son or the daughter or as the cousin or the sister or the brother. And so, of course, as you're growing up, you're feeding into these identifying labels of what society tells you you should be. And when you want to be something that's not part of that societal, it gets completely squashed out because, you know, that fire gets going and everybody's like, oh, no, 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 that's way too over there. And because society's way over here, you can't be that. So we're going to just kind of put out that fire and then bring you back in so that you can conform to what it is that we think. Happens all through our life. we get into our 20s and now all of a sudden we're conformed. We have to get married and we have to go to college and we have to do this and then we have to start producing children and then we have to become the parent and then the grandparent and yada, yada, yada. Well, some of us in here wake up and go, stop it. This is not what I signed up for. I don't want to do this anymore. And we step back and decide that what we've been doing up until this point is not what we want to do going forward. And then we start to have this whole I want to make change thing happen on, and then everybody around us thinks we're having a midlife crisis, right? Oh, you can't do that. That's totally not what you're supposed to be doing, and you were set up to do this, and da 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 da. And we can go one of two ways. We can conform, right, and go back into what society deems, or we can start to make change to develop a life that we want to experience as opposed to being told what we should experience. Feelings have the same emotion or same life cycle. So when we're born, we're 2 years old, we're told we're not allowed to feel this way. So we start repressing all of this emotion. Well, fine, if I can't feel that way, I'm just going to stick it over here. If I can't feel that way, I'm just going to put it over there. And then instead of acting out upon these feelings, we act in upon these feelings. And acting in upon these feelings feeds them, right? Fires them up, especially when they're in the past or future, and most of our feelings are. Emotions in the past are the hot-bodied feelings, embarrassment, guilt, shame, resentment, these things that are related to past events that the mind will play over, and then we'll feel all of this hotness in the body in one of these emotions. Future-based emotions, like if we've been driven fear into our world, or anxiety. So fear, anxiety, worry are all future-based thinkings, and we tend to have cold experiences in the body. So anyway, feelings, because we're not allowed to act them out, we start acting them in and we repress them down. And sometimes we repress them down so much that we actually become numb to the fact that we're having an emotional experience. We get the dazed, checked out. It's a constant daydreamer state of mind because what we're seeing out here is not what we want to experience. And what we're seeing and what we want, if they don't match up, there's going to be a negative emotion experienced in the body. And because the mind is so, part of the mind, the ego, is so ready to wrap itself around that experience and make it something more, it compounds the situation and we become more and more repressed. So getting out of the feeling, right? This is where, as in the yoga side of the world, it talks about repressed emotions and then full-blown emotions where the emotions actually start coming out. And this could be like the midlife crisis thing where you actually start to say no, right, to somebody, or you start to say, no, this is what I want to do, and then you act upon it, and then you start to get all of these emotions that come out. Maybe you'll get a motorcycle and a tattoo and go riding across the country, or maybe you won't. But that's kind of what I think about. But all of these things start to come out, and then you stop repressing your emotions, and then you start to move into this alternating pattern of like or dislike, or love or hate, or jealousy or revenge, or versus forgiveness and joy or gratitude. And at this point, you actually are waking up the mind enough to make a choice. And when an event happens, if you are unaware, the tendency for a negative thinking mind will be to fall into this anger, resentment, guilt, shame, embarrassment siphon, fall back down the cycle of emotion. The tendency for a conscious mind, or a mind that's starting to wake itself up, will recognize that although I'm feeling these funky sensations in my body in relationship to an event that's happening out here, I don't necessarily need to identify with them any longer. I can say, okay, this too shall pass, and it always does, right? An emotion has a life cycle just like everything else. So this feeling or the sensation will start to come out of the body, and then we'll start to move into something else. And when we're not holding on to that experience, when we're not holding on to it so that we can relive it again, we actually become free of it, right? And this is an awkward situation because, gosh, how can I be free of my emotion? And it's really hard for any of us who have been in the bottom of the world depression, and we look up and all we see way at the end is the light at the end of the tunnel, right? And we're like, okay, well, one, there's a light there. That's great, but I'm stuck at the bottom of the well and there's no ladder. Okay, so the law of attraction side of it, what the teachings from Abraham say, is that you don't necessarily need to move from depression to happiness in one step, right? Because that's extremely hard. Because how can you live inside of happiness when all you are surrounded by is depression? But pessimism or anger might be the next step out of depression. I can see anger, right? If I'm depressed, because I got fire personality, I can definitely see anger. So anger is at least it's movement, and it's not stagnation and suppression. It's movement. It's fire. It's burning something up. So I can move out of depression by stepping into anger. And when I'm in anger, I might not know joy, but I can definitely know pessimism, right? So pessimism might be my next step. Okay, yeah, that may happen. It may not. Chances are, and you get all like whatever. But if you're willing to step into pessimism to see if it might happen, you can step into it, and then from there, hey, you know what? You might just see opportunity. You might just find an opportunistic moment, like, okay, yeah, my water bottle's got some water in it. I guess I can be happy about that. Oh, I just said happy. Okay, so then all of a sudden, because you're in a different place, even though it's not a happy place, but you're in a pessimistic to potentially opportunistic or optimistic point of view, you can start to feel what it's like to be pessimistic with optimistic viewpoints, and then perhaps you'll just step into optimism and see what that feels like for a little while. And then if you're sitting inside of optimism, you might look back and go, oh yeah, I'm kind of optimistic now, and well, I can see that that's pessimistic if I go that way, but what would it feel like if I wanted to try on joy? Because now joy might be obtainable. Joy might be in my fingertips. I'm not ready to be happy yet. Don't even push me there. But I could feel joy for a moment. That was a fun moment. Yeah, I can feel happy about that for a moment. So we start to feed into this opportunistic, optimistic point of view. And the more we walk to that direction, the more the tunnel becomes a pinpoint into an opening. And then when you're ready, you step in. And it's there. And then, wow, being in a happy place, you look back and you go, oh yeah, I see the pinpoint of darkness way down the other end that I used to be in that black hole. And now that I'm not there, I'm going to look for other people that are in those black holes and reach out my hand and see if they're willing to grab it.
Mm.
Yummy.
I love it. I don't know anybody who knows you that would not say that you've changed their life in some way, and it's clear listening to you talk why they feel that way.
Yeah, it's mutual. Gosh, everybody that I meet, or let's put it on the client base, right? Because this is about business as well. Because I look at everybody as a networking opportunity, but everybody as a person as well. So there's a dualistic world there. If I think in my logical business brain side of mine, I of course look at all of these people that I've learned from, and it's when you reach out that hand because you found what it feels like to be happy, and you reach out that hand to somebody that doesn't, you learn more about what it's like to be happy. So you start to consume it more, and then it's a fuel. You just keep feeling it, you keep bringing it, and you keep finding yourself in positions and situations where no matter what kind of upset, angry, negative person is around you, they no longer have the power to consume your tank of happiness because it's no longer a cup, but it's a flow, right? It's so full that it's burnt a hole in the bottom, and then you've become the container as opposed to holding onto a container. And then you become that light for other people. You become that system where people reach out to you and say, hey, yeah, what is it that you're doing? Because to me, that strikes up a chord of I want to participate in. And I get that same thing from the people that I meet, friendships, relationships, business partners, clients, coworkers. Everybody has a story, right? There's the story thing again. But inside of that story is an individual that is going through an experience, and being able to tap into somebody else's experience and learn from their story of where they've come from and where they've gone, oh gosh, it magnifies your own ability to be compassionate and empathetic and willing to reach out and help. Um, there's such a profound experience of joy that comes from giving without expecting anything back in return. Um, and so often, we as a society give with an expectation, and it because we expect, we never receive. In the realm that we're expecting something and it's never going to satisfy a need, right? But if you remove the need, there's nothing to satisfy. So you're just giving, and it's profoundly joyful. It's quite an interesting thing to experience that with other people. And yeah, looking back at my clients, I get calls and emails from people all of the time, people that I've worked with that are so grateful. And what I love is that now they're out there doing the same thing with other people. They're out there, it's the love joy. You just can't help it. They're like, oh yeah, um, they put themselves through Fit Club again and again, and they put themselves through um, conversations where they can have with their families that are a little bit more open and a little bit more honest and a little bit more authentic. And their responsibility becomes infectious, so the people around them actually start to get lifted up and feel better as well. It's nice.
What do you think your greatest success is?
Greatest success. Hmm. Being here. Um, I find it kind of fascinating that I do whatever I want. People ask, this is a common societal question, and of course I say society because I refuse to conform. But societal questions are things like, what do you do? Okay, and we're so conditioned to saying, oh, I am blah blah blah, fill in the blank, whatever's related to what we do for work. And so I've cut that whole thing out. So people say, what do you do? And I'm like, I do whatever I want. What do you do? And they just start laughing because it's just, it's not what you are expecting to hear, but it's the truth. I do whatever I want whenever I want to do it. And that responsibility thing, that accountability thing comes in, and it allows for us to create a schedule based on the things that we want to experience in life. It allows us to find balance in the relationships, because everything that we're surrounded by is a relationship in one label, certain form or another, whether it's a person, an event, pet, house, vehicle, or transportation. Everything is, we have a relationship with. Some of those relationships become very heavy because there's so much that's needed for them, and when we don't sculpt our own picture, we're bound to live by somebody else's painted perspective, and to me that's heavy. With loved ones, we offer a lot of allowances because it's important to make sure that our loved ones are taken care of. This to me is part of that balance anyway. But there comes times when, in our lives, when we really truly want to be who it is that we are, that we have to be willing to shake off that excess. And successfully, or not, however you want to label it, success to me, from what I've done, is I live the life I want to live. I love my life. I am so grateful every single day. I'm one of the happiest people I know. I'm one of those annoyingly opportunistic happy people that people go like, oh my God, yes, I want to be around you, but stop, especially if I love being around people that come from where I used to come from, and I was my past and my history, which corporate world, young 20s, very angry, resentful. The world was my nemesis, and nothing was ever good enough, and blah 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 blah. Nothing ever worked. You know what I mean? When I was in my 20s and possibly early my early 30s, nothing ever worked. Nothing ever seemed to go my way, and blah 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, I decided it was time to switch. and have worked very hard at um, letting go of all of the associated story that hangs around with this. And a lot of this is yoga. A lot of it is meditation. A lot of it is, gosh, what I consume physically, what my body becomes because of what I put into it, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And um, it's a beautiful thing to turn around and see yourself surrounded by so little, but it means so much, and it's kind of rich. It's kind of rewarding.
So, what is the one failure that you have learned the most from?
Failure, and failure is a constant state, right? Every success and every failure is a constant. I mean, every moment is that opportunity. Um, I think that failure in general is uh, is a beautiful experience to go through. And the biggest failure um, is the unwillingness to embrace all of the other failures and understand that there is more to a definition of life than success and failing. It's kind of like the marriage of both. It's the unity of success and failure that allow us to be free from the extreme ends of it. Which actually I think is kind of successful. So right, and could that be a future failure? So of course the mind plays, right? So Sarah, this is what I do in my head. Don't be jealous.
You know I
So,
am.
failure, what is my biggest failure? I think the biggest failure would be for me is that um, I still have things, of course, like everybody, that haven't had the nitty-grittiness of them worked out of yet. And I still have things that show up in my life that have knee-jerk reactions because I have an immediate sense of, I don't, this is not what I want to experience. And because there's such an intensity of unwillingness to see something or hear something or taste or smell, whatever, there's such an unwillingness to have that uncomfortable experience around you that you automatically go on to autopilot, and you churn the I don't want to experience with this into an emotion, which becomes a filter of how did I get into this circumstance or situation. So you start like looking back into the past and trying to thread things together so that you can project into the future where it is that you need to go to get out of that space. But the forgetful part of it is, right, when we get into this, is that no matter what the experience is, we're going to be out of it soon anyway. So this way too much time spent trying to piece it all together so that you can figure out the answer when you're going to get to wherever you're going next. Wherever I go, there I am. You're going to get to wherever that is when you get there. So um, the that failure of getting caught up in the story, I think, is still a profound experience on a consistent basis. But the more I practice, the easier it is to remember, and the more tools that I have in my tool belt, the easier it is to snap myself out of it if and when I do go down those roads.
Do you, I know when we were doing Fit Club together, there's a lot of exercises that you had. Do you still use some of those with your clients now?
The physical, the mental, and the emotional. Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
so share with us what may be your favorite mental emotional exercise for them.
Mental emotional exercise. Well, I'm a journal writer. I think that writing is a profound way of getting out all of that unprocessed junk in the brain into a place where it can be put away and worked with. Because up here it doesn't do us anything except for create more garbage. But once you get it out, it's like, oh, okay, it's out of my head. It's in a place where I can access it and utilize it consistently, and it's in a place of safety, because up here it's not really safe because it can be like circumstances can be replayed over and over again, so that stuff can be battered around into a million different plays, and by the time the event happens and by the time we're letting go of it, you've got 6 million different versions of the same exact story. So what's right, what's the truth, right? Because the truth has been lost in that barrage of garbage. um, so I think that dealing with the mental and the emotional part of life is actually a physical act. So the physical act of writing it all out is a tool to help get into the mental and the emotional. Another one of the biggest keys for mental or mind understanding in terms in relationship to um, ownership is meditation. I strongly believe that without a meditative practice, I would not be where I am today. And I see how profound of a key meditation is to everything that I'm surrounded by. It is the one tool that connects all of the dots um, in a way that is nurturing, in a way that is wise beyond realms of comprehension that my normal part of the mind um, can't understand. And when it's practiced consistently and regularly with good technique, it is astounding at how much the emotional well-being of our body shifts. And when it shifts to a positive vibration, the mind no longer has to struggle with the negative tendencies of the emotions, and more can be accomplished. And then you start taking care of your body differently, because you recognize that your body is the connector of your inside world and your outside world. It's the thing that allows those two, what would seem yin and yang, very separate existences, to become one experience. You smell it, you taste it, you see it, you hear it, you feel it. And when this system is functioning properly, there is less garbage for the mind to sort through because it doesn't get caught up in a filter of ego or emotion that's wrapped up in a story. So yeah, meditation, good for the emotions, good for the mind, good for the body, good for the soul, good for you. Hey, there's a commercial.
What is your morning routine like?
Oh, wake up, open the eyes. It's interesting. I am a how shall we say? I don't know if there's a label for it. There probably is. Something, something or other. I'm like a bear to a degree, right? I hibernate in the winter and I'm awake in the summer. Um, in the winter, I like to go to bed at like 7:30 and sleep until noon. And then get up, eat, stretch a little bit, and go back to bed. In the summer, I'm up until 3 in the morning and I get up at 5:30. It's just, it's a very cyclical type of thing. So first thing in the morning for me is very different. Um, First thing I do is one of these, gets drunk from beginning to end, without a question. I fill up my water bottle, I drink it all the way down every single day. Um, you know, we're made of water. I mean, it's interesting to experience. It seems like a very physical thing, but really, I mean, we are water. So by feeding it this very important thing, you're actually cleaning out the systems very, very early in the morning. Stretch, and it may not be yoga. Yoga is great because it's a meditation and a practice. It's a ritual. It's something that you can learn and practice over the course of years and things like that. But really, I mean, stretch up, side bend, get the arms moving. There's a great YouTube video out there by this guy that talks about the fuzz. So you can totally YouTube who he is, but it's the fuzz, and it totally makes sense. Like when we become stagnant and stationary, our muscles start to fuse and grow this like liner between the the tissues. And the more we don't release that liner, the more we don't massage it out of the body or stretch it out of the body or wiggle it out of the body, the more solidified it gets, because one day becomes 2 day, becomes 3 day, becomes 4 day, becomes a week, becomes a month, and all of a sudden you've got frozen shoulder, right? And you've got this um, thing of tissue that would have just kind of melted away has now become solid because it keeps compounding on itself. So physical, stretching the body out first thing in the morning, breathing, anything that I can do first thing in the morning to wake up my mind to choice, conscious choice, instead of going off into dreamland and things like that, is important. What is the first thing? Note the time every single day when you're first starting this. Note what time it is that you're recognizing that you're having a conscious moment. And for some of us, gosh, we'd be lucky if we get them once a year. When I first started practicing, I remember the first time I was recognizing that I was having a conscious moment in the moment. I know the moment in my mind. I remember the experience completely, but it was the first time that I was like, oh my gosh, I am completely awake to everything that's going on around me, and I'm aware of the fact that I'm awake that everything's going on around me. And it was a blip, it was all of this big in the comparison of the grand scheme of things. But that one recognition became, instead of like a blip and a blip and a blip, all of a sudden started becoming moments and moments and moments, and then those moments started to form together and they're becoming longer and longer, and now I'm living more in the realm of more conscious moments and blips outside of that consciousness and those failures or perceived failures. So whatever it is that you can do to become conscious in the morning, if that's putting a big fat wake up sleepyhead on your water bottle as you're drinking it, that could be a cue into saying, hey, okay, I'm awake. Oh, and I'm aware of the fact that I'm drinking my water and I can feel it going into my mouth, down into my throat, and in my belly. Conscious moment. Awareness of sensation. That's all it is. So yeah, tuning the body and the mind up into being conscious first thing in the morning.
I know you live a very transparent life and being. What's something that few people know about you
I'm a
at this moment?
total Star Wars dork.
I knew that.
I love Star Wars. Okay, I love sci-fi, fantasy, Star Wars, that kind of thing. I'm in a musical organization. I play the clarinet. Still, 40 years into life. What else do I do? What is totally about me? I look around my room for cues. I'm in my little den. I don't know. I think that a lot of people think that I'm extremely serious, which I think is kind of funny. I mean, I've got passion. I've got directed passion that can get things done, but I'm also I think myself to be like a geeky comedian on the inside, and I often don't think that people know that about me. I'm a bit of a dork.
I remember giving you a present for your birthday and watching you leap around with that in hand, blessing everybody around you.
I wonder if I have that.
I have definitely seen your playful side on more than one occasion.
Yes.
It's great. If you had 3 people that you could call on for counsel, it could be living or dead, who would that be?
Mom. Mom is at the top of the list. She is grounding force. I'm actually very lucky, right, if you want to call it luck. I'm very grateful to have my mother in my life. She's got just about as much fire as I do, which is kind of fun because I can get her riled up pretty easy. But she's also very intuitive, and she is a listener. I think I got a lot of my willingness to hear what somebody else has to say without necessarily having to have a response from my mom. So she's counsel of wisdom. The teachings of Buddha, I think, are also profoundly influential in how it is that I approach the world around me, or how if I have questions on um, experiences, what can I learn from them? And for me, um, the teachings of Buddha have been all about understanding my mind and um, what role my mind has to play in the world that's created around me. And the more I understand that relationship, the easier and more beautiful the experience of life becomes for me. Um, the third would be just it's not really a person. It's more of an observation of life. Life is my teacher. Life is that spiritual guru. It's the willingness to look at the world I see and feel and smell and taste through my body and appreciate um, what it is that I'm surrounded by. Nature is my best friend. Um, I can disappear into a wooded trail and be gone for days and be in the happiest place. It's my refueling place. I feel more content and at ease in a place that's got a mountain or a creek or wooded path or hearing the squirrels. It's unplugging from humanity a little bit every once in a while to become the wild that we also are. And I think that we have progressed so far as humans that very few of us are willing to taste what it's like to be um, that wild beast every once in a while. And I think that if more of us did that, um, I think we would laugh a little bit more.
What does whole being mean to you?
Whole being. Oh, it's so yummy. You know, wholeness is something that we strive for, but at the same time, it's something we already are. Um, Whole being is a bit of an allowing, right? I think that we're so desperate to be something. Um, And in that desperation of being something, we forget that we already are something wonderful. And whole being to me is a representation of that wonderfulness that uh, we remember to experience now and then. Because, you know, right now, here I am. And when I'm not here, I am right now anymore, I'll be there I am being that when it shows up, and being able to embrace this whole experience through my being, knowing that my being is both in here and out here being reflected back at me, I think is a great place to be, and it's very whole.
Hmm. How can people find you?
Oh my gosh, I'm everywhere. Look here, I'm right there inside your heart. Um, Find me, oh gosh, peacefulroots.com is a business page. Peaceful Roots, I started in 2009, and you were very much a part of Peaceful Roots at its get-go. So that is a great way to find where I am and find where you are as well.
And are you on Twitter? I know you're on Facebook. Um,
Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, WordPress, what are all those other things?
Pretty
Yeah,
much
all
everything.
of
So
those
go to your
places.
website.
Go to the website. Yeah, there's those little fancy little buttons that you can click on, and then all of a sudden you're in a whole different world. But don't spend too much time on the internet. Get outside and enjoy the sunshine.
Thank you so much, Denny. It is such an honor and a pleasure to get to spend a little bit of time talking to you about your very unique and beautiful views on health.
Wendy, it's always a pleasure. One of my guiding lights, one of my biggest go-to people for uh, things that when I need guidance, you are at the top of the list as always. So
I
a
am
pleasure to
deeply
pleasure to
honored.
talk to you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.